My name is Joseph Kopser. Thanks for tuning in to learn more about Grayline. I'm joined by Brett Boyd, and what we want to do this video is help explain to you why we created Grayline. Bottom line, change is hard. I spent 20 years in the United States military, got into the private sector as a tech entrepreneur, and then spent time in the corporate world. All three of my experienced how hard change was for organizations, and hopefully our experiences can help you. Brett?
Yeah, absolutely. So I also started my career in the military. I've spent the last decade or so as a corporate strategy executive, getting to see how a lot of different types of organizations develop strategy. And look, we all know that this is a time of incredible change, and it's a wonderful time to be alive. There's a lot happening. Lives are improving across the world. But when you look at this from an organizational perspective, and again, this is business, these are investors, these are the cities and national governments that support where and how we live, big organizations do not have a great track record of successfully navigating large structural change. And it's not, again, this is not to dock them, this is not a detriment. It's just really hard to be both a efficient company competing against other great companies in highly competitive markets, and at the same time reorient or position your organization towards a future state.
Yeah, or even a public sector trying to be able to provide services to the community at the smallest cost possible and efficiently if possible.
No, absolutely. And so really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build a framework. We've actually built a methodology and a process to try to help organizations understand the truly transformational developments from all of the noise. And the noise, again, is important, but there is a difference between incremental improvements that help one company be more competitive with another company and broad transformations that create whole new types of industries and diminish other types of industries.
Yeah, and so the first thing they've got to be able to do is just see what's happening and understand what's happening around them.
Absolutely, and really this is the methodology that we built. And we call these truly transformational developments catalysts. We have a framework where we actually look at innovation and technology in context of the widespread nature of change, of how many different types of businesses and organizational strategies it affects, at the availability of solutions for organizations to implement, to react, and there's a whole framework here for how we look at some of these big transformations. But the point is what we're trying to do is we're trying to help organizations, and these are leaders at all levels, sort out what they really need to be worried about. Because in this era of information overload, when the media presents everything as the next transformation, the next great thing, in some cases they're right. In other cases they're trying to draw eyeballs to their website or their news channel. And so what we're trying to do is we're really trying to help hone in on what is the signal amidst all the noise here. And once you establish that, then that lets you talk about what do I do about it, how do I do different things, and so on. But really the core here is the catalyst methodology and isolating those truly transformational developments.
Right. So let's say that the company can begin to understand what's happening. They've identified the signal that really matters. Then what's the next step?
Well, I mean, obviously it's what's happening, and then what do I do about it? And in some cases the answer is nothing. Right, and so in other cases the answer is something but later, and in other cases the answer is now, and here are the costs of inaction. But there's a whole strategy development process that, again, different types of organizations think about this differently. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but once you've identified that, hey, look, like we are running a strategy that's built on assumption A, assumption B, and assumption C, and assumption A is significantly changing. Therefore, the strategy necessarily has to change. Again, organizations, when you look at organizations that tend to fail in these times of transformation, which if you look at the data, the S&P 500, the Fortune 500 data, it's most organizations actually will be significantly diminished in times of change.
And the rate of change, the rate of turmoil is getting faster over time?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the S&P 500, for example, in the 1960s, I think the average duration on the S&P 500 was over 50 years. In the 90s, early 90s, it was something around 20, 25 years, and it's forecasted to be, I believe, 14 years here in the next few years. And so this cycle is happening more and more quickly, and it really is a difficult cycle to navigate. Transformation, when the foundation upon which your organizational strategy is built, when that foundation changes, it's very hard to maintain excellence and adjust at the same time.
Okay, so somebody watching this, whether they're a CEO, a mayor, the leader of a nonprofit, they work in government, they've heard what you've said, they understand something is happening, they've decided they need to do something about it. What's the next step?
Well, the next step, as you well know, the next step is actually implementing change. We call it change management is the big moniker, but essentially the organizations are people. And people make these go, and especially as you look at these organizations with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, the world does not work in such a fashion where a leader, a CEO, a governor, or a president says, I want to do this, and all of a sudden it happens. There's a whole spectrum of organizational issues, psychological issues, incentive issues, and really how do you steer, how do you steer the battleship, I guess is the metaphor I was about to use, towards some of these changes. So that's another area that we try to dig in, is the actual change management dynamics and supporting some of those transitions.
So one of the things that we've noticed in our work is that large organizations or governments or these entities don't usually have the strategy teams they have to be looking forward into the future. So that in many ways is where Grayline comes in, because they might bring in others to help them do this long term, but what's the role of Grayline and how do you see that fitting in for someone that's tuning in?
Sure. Well, it's a challenge here because we're in an environment right now where, as you discussed, change is happening more and more quickly. Separately, what globalization has really done over the last 20 years is it's connected everything, right? So regions are connected, industries are connected, et cetera. And so now, more than any extent previously, disruption in one industry flows through other industries. I mean, the 2008 financial crisis is a wonderful example of that. And what that means, though, is that you now need to be paying attention to everything, right? You actually need to understand what's happening in all these other industries to a greater extent than ever before.
So if I've been selling furniture, the same way I've been selling furniture for the last 40 years, you tell me that even has an impact on me?
Yeah, look, you actually need somebody who understands augmented reality, machine learning. You need to look at there's all sorts of different things that you need to understand now. And an efficient organization doesn't necessarily have those people hanging out in the back room waiting to be called into a meeting so that they can help people think about this. I mean, it's not really an efficient way to organize. So what we've tried to do, again, is bring together experts, and these are people from industry, prior successful executives. These are also leading researchers and people from higher education and different types of research institutions. And we've tried to bring some expertise together and create some data sets. Data sets really allow you to see directionality and timing, which allow you to make decisions, really. And so what we've tried to build is some tools to help think outside the bounds of your traditional industry. Like the furniture executive example. We're never going to tell that team more than they already know about the furniture business. And that's not our goal here. But when they do want to say, okay, let's step back and let's look at some of these other big pillars of change that we maybe don't have that much expertise in, and let's see where we can leverage some outside help, we'd like to be that help, or at least one of the voices in that room. And again, that flows through from understanding what is happening, to deciding if, what, and when to do something about it, to implementing those changes throughout a large organization. And we see those three as kind of discrete business activities, and that's frankly how we've tried to organize the company.
Right. So before we close out the video for the viewer, what else do we want to share?
Well, I just think that this is a really exciting time. And again, it's most of these changes are very positive, and they're like the future in the next 5 to 10 years is really just going to be exciting and wonderful to look at. We're very focused on the transformation that's happening in cities as a result of the transportation revolution, technology-enabled infrastructure, and some of these other urbanization and other forces. So we think cities are going to look a lot different going forward. We're also focused on advanced manufacturing. Manufacturing and the global trade system are so interconnected that changes to manufacturing technology, we feel, have a high likelihood of rippling through the entire system. We're also looking at power. Renewable energy has kind of been the next great thing for 20 years or so, but we actually see that coming close. And surprisingly, as a result of battery technology. Really, Tesla and others have poured billions into perfecting batteries for electric vehicles, and we're really focused on how that will transfer over into grid storage solutions, which we think is the last remaining piece of the puzzle for renewables. So we're looking at those areas. We're also looking at I guess some other technologies such as machine learning. We're looking at the whole biotech and genomics issue. The blockchain is very interesting. Not so much in terms of cryptocurrencies and asset prices and all of that, but more in terms of the underlying foundational technology that we think has the potential to reorganize some industries. So again, these are just some examples to help see how we think about things and what we think about. And look, this has been, as you well know, a fun business to put together. These are great topics. We love working with the broader industry and research community, and it really has been fun.
Absolutely. So thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about Grayline and the products and services and the future and where we're going, please check out the other website videos that we have and give us your feedback. Thanks for tuning in.